8 shows a week is a lot, but it is what is expected of professional actors. However, that can be very mentally and physically demanding, especially when we're talking about musical theater. You are expected to perform music that most of the audience is likely intimately familiar with, while also maintaining proper technique, acting through the music, and somehow putting your own spin on the role. And all of these different responsibilities got me thinking, is there a way to prove an objectively best performance? For this endeavor, I've decided to examine the role of Elphaba in the hit musical Wicked. Why? For a few reasons. 1. Wicked is at the exact right age where there have been many different performances with many different actors, and many of them have been filmed. 2. The role of Elphaba has been played by some of the most popular actresses currently working on Broadway, which gives us a lot to work with. 3. The role of Elphaba is both demanding and iconic, which gives it a higher level of difficulty than most roles in musical theater. After some preliminary research, I selected 10 Elphabas who either are extremely iconic and popular or I personally enjoy. These actresses are Idina Menzel, Lindsay Mendez, Stephanie J. Block, Eden Espinosa, Anna Gasteyer, Jackie Burns, Shoshana Bean, Dana Paola, and Willem Verkijk. And Jessica Vosk. But for this to be considered science, we need a control. Luckily, there is a version out there that we can assume is the one correct version of the show. It was done in ideal circumstances with multiple takes, digital editing, and was approved by the composer. I'm talking about the original Broadway cast recording. Also, there was no way I was going to be able to do an in-depth analysis on 11 complete soundtracks, so instead I have selected 5 moments that highlight the difficulty of the role. The first 2 come from the first big solo of the show, The Wizard and I. Now, most of this number is in what is known as mixed range. According to Dr. Ingo Titze, mixed range is defined as when the vocal folds are in balance, resulting in a mix of the sounds of the chest voice and head voice. However, this is when the song transitions from mixed range into belting. Let's listen to 2 more versions of this portion of the song, one by Jackie Burns and one by Eden Espinosa. Here is a spectrogram of what we just listened to. As you can see, there really isn't any variation in this clip. You can't even see a curve to the sound waves as she belts the entire section as hard as she can. Now, here's Eden Espinosa's. Doesn't that sound lower than the other 2 versions we've listened to? She's singing the exact same notes, but it doesn't sound like it. This is due to formants, also known as acoustic resonance, which is where the highest degree of energy is located in a sound. Looking here, we can see that her formants are approximately 1,000 hertz lower than the other actresses, which leads to her voice having a lower sounding quality. And in this case, I'm referring to lower as in pitch, not quality or technique. Regardless, this is true for all of Eden Espinosa's performances, but it is the most evident in this particular clip. Now, let's take a look at the finale of this song. This finale is a great example of what is expected from the role of Elphaba in terms of pitch, difficulty, and style. There are quite a few different versions of how the ending of this song goes, but I want to focus on Anna Gasteyer's. Now, at first glance, this seems pretty standard, but when you take a closer look, there is a masterful display of technique going on here. Looking at this, we can actually see a division between the syllables as she displays perfect articulation. It's extremely clean and precise. But when you think of Wicked, you're probably not thinking of The Wizard and I. No, without a doubt, the most iconic song is Defying Gravity. And here is where we get to an interesting comparison. See, Our Control is the original Broadway cast album, and I also chose to include Idina Menzel, the original Broadway Elphaba, in the comparison. Now, in theory, there shouldn't be that many differences here. But when it comes to Defying Gravity, this is the transition between the introduction into the more well-known body of the song. It is crucial at this point in the song that you maintain excellent breath support because there is a crescendo happening and there is no time to breathe after this moment and only a second before. Here is the version from the album. And here's a live version. Now, I couldn't find an official explanation anywhere as to what is causing this, but throughout her entire time as Elphaba, Idina Menzel struggles to breathe throughout Defying Gravity. It didn't happen to anyone else. It didn't happen to her in any other number. There is no explanation as to why it happened, but you can hear her struggling to breathe throughout the entire song. And now we have reached arguably the most iconic moment in the entire show, the final riff of Defying Gravity that closes out Act 1. Let's break this down further because not only is it iconic, but it really exemplifies the differences between each of these actresses and how they approach the role. Now, the standard riff here is C#5, F5, E5, F5, like this. That's how Idina Menzel, Dana Paula, Jackie Burns, Shoshana Bean, Lindsay Mendez, and Jessica Fosk do it. But it's also not uncommon to add an A5 into the mix, making it C#5, F5, A5, E5, F5, like this. That's how Willem Verkijk and Eden Espinosa do it. But there's also a third, less common way to do this riff, which is to do as little riffing as possible and just hold the F5 like this. That's how Stephanie J. Block and Anna Gasteyer do it. And now we get to talk about one of my favorite numbers in all of Wicked, No Good Deed. This is the super emotional 11 o'clock number, and when you are sitting in the theater, there is one moment that never fails to give you goosebumps. Now, there isn't a bad version of this moment. However, I wanted to look at two that make very specific choices in how they approach portraying the anguish in this moment. Here's Dana Paola. Looking here, we can see that she is absolutely belting this top volume, and it leads to a powerful impact. Now, let's listen to Shoshana Bean. Most of this looks and sounds pretty standard, But then at the end, she makes the choice to transition the riff into a cry that blends singing and acting in a moment of intensity. So now that all of this analysis has taken place, can we determine a best Elphaba? Yes and no. Anna Gasteyer's technique is incredible, and her performance sounds almost effortless. There isn't a lot of fuss or flash, it's just perfect singing. She is clearly extremely talented, and the fact that more people don't recognize this is a travesty. But at the same time, effortless and non-flashy isn't really what I think about when I think about Elphaba. That's not what the role or the show demands. If this is a question of who is the most consistent Elphaba, I think that goes to Lindsay Mendez. She's essentially able to just replicate the original Broadway cast recording, which even Idina Menzel, who was the cast recording, can't do. However, this is art, and subjectivity is inherent to how we experience it. Maybe you enjoy Jackie Burns belting and riffing at every opportunity. Maybe you like Eden Espinosa and the lower quality of her voice. Maybe you like Anna Gasteyer's cleaner style. Ultimately, we're dealing with Broadway caliber actresses. They are all extremely talented and more than deserving of being someone's favorite Elphaba. However, maybe this will help you understand why you feel the way you do about whoever is your favorite. Thank you so much for paying attention throughout this entire summary of this project that took me months to work on. If you're interested in reading the 14-page paper that this video is summarizing, let me know. I will gladly send it to you. And if you have a favorite Elphaba, I'd love to know who it is and what makes them your favorite.